This show is brought to you by PMP Nutrition and Supplements.com, your one-stop shop for fitness and supplements to get you to your best life. The Jacksonville Free Press, providing quality urban news for more than 30 years. And Edward Waters College, preserving history, promising futures. From the campus of Edward Waters College, it's the Rahman Experience. The Rahman Experience.
It's a brand new experience, a brand new time, a brand new way to do it. Hey, yeah, it's all mine. I'm the one telling stories you thought couldn't be told. I'm the one that bring you in your when you shaking from the cold. I'm the one always out front, yeah, trying something new. I'm the one that's gonna deliver when they ask what it do. Politics, entertainment, a science, all the news. Keeping you on the level with the stuff you can use. DJ Kids on the beat, the Rock's got the track. It's the Rahman Experience. You know that's where it's at.
Welcome to this edition of the Rahman Experience. Hey there, thank you so much for all of the comments you've made about the show. You know, this show is so amazing to me because it's something that allows me to kind of talk about news and the things that I find interesting and get feedback from you, and it really is a labor of love. So I'm really thankful to everybody who've invested, you guys have invested time, you've listened, you've sent me notes, everybody who came together to make the production possible. Thank you. I can't say it enough. Now, as we develop in the show, things will be changing. You'll see new segments. You'll see different people, guests from around the world. I plan to make this show as not only user-friendly, but as interesting as possible. So, let's take a look at some of your feedback in the comments we've gotten about the show so far. Now, Royce from Atlanta left a comment on Instagram. He said, I heard the show and I love it. You're taking us around the world, huh? I see you, man. Keep up the good work. Thanks, Royce. That's what we're trying to do, man. Not just make it centric to where we are, but to really talk about all forms of the diaspora, all people out there, just something new and different. I see Jay from Philadelphia. Jay Woo. Hey, man, you did that. Good talk. I'm inspired. Real talk. Hey, Jay, thank you, man. Jay is a radio guy as well, I see on Instagram. Thanks so much. Maybe we can get you on the show one day. I appreciate you reaching out and leaving your comments. And remember, you can leave your comments on any of the platforms where you pick up the show, or you can hit me on any of the social media networks. I really want to know what you think about the show. So follow me on Instagram. The Instagram name is @RahmanJ. That's @RahmanJ. On Twitter as well, @RahmanJ. And my Facebook code is facebook.com/RahmanJFans. Now, got something a little different. That's why you heard the voice earlier. You can also call and leave a message at 540-RAHMAN7, 540-RAHMAN7, or 540-724-6267. You can also send a text, and who knows, maybe your call or your text just might make it on the show. Now, I know everybody's seen the movie Hidden Figures. It's one of the best movies that's ever, I can't say, it's like a blockbuster, but it's a great story, and you know how I love stories, that was just desiring to be told. Of course, if you didn't see it, you should go, but it's about where the U.S. government trains women to do the complex calculations required to build technology specifically for NASA. And these women did all these calculations in their brain. They were known at this time as computers. Well, I was able to talk with a computer that before the women went on to create these great vehicles for NASA, there were women who did this for the Defense Department. And the woman we talked to today is one of those women. Her name is Yvette Ridley, Mrs. Yvette Ridley. And she was right there, literally. One of the most amazing women I've met. At 97 years young, she is smart as ever. She has a photographic memory. She uses her skills to help people around her and just continues to inspire everybody just by her being alive. She's a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. She's got multiple college degrees, multiple careers, and at 97, she does not show any plan of slowing down. I mean, she just continues to go and go and go. Interestingly enough, she's also a poll worker. To this day, a poll worker in the local election polls. So I look forward to sharing my conversation with Mrs. Helen Ridley, one of the original Hidden Figures, with you. But first, the news. It's been a wild week at the White House after the resignations of Hope Hicks as communications director and Gary Cohn leading up the Economic Council. Now, most thought things would be quiet for a while, but early Tuesday morning, the president fired Secretary of State Rex Tillerson on Twitter, which is just the day before the president's body man, John McEntee, was escorted from the White House after a reported security issue. Now, McEntee is being investigated for financial crimes by the Department of Homeland Security. President Trump is also supposedly mulling getting rid of a few other cabinet-level positions and making replacements. While many people are usually enjoying the South by Southwest Music Festival, right now in Austin, more than 1 million people are on high alert after package bombs left at homes exploded, killing at least 2 people. Now, the packages have not been mailed, they were hand-delivered, and authorities believe that was done at random. All of the victims have been prominent African American or Hispanic community members. And the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms is on the scene investigating, but right now there are no leads. No group or individual has claimed responsibility for the bombing. Now, if you like to see stuff that just went absolutely wrong, the Museum of Failure, it's open in the U.S., now in Los Angeles. It's a museum for stuff that just didn't make it. It failed. The exhibition was initially in Sweden, but it recently moved to LA to get more visitors. Now, some of the items you can find on display at the Museum of Failure are Google Glasses. Remember, they were a big trend. Everybody was trying to get Google Glasses, but didn't quite catch on. Lasagna by Colgate. That's right, the food lasagna by the toothpaste company. Let's hope that there is no Colgate in the lasagna. And finally, Trump, the board game. It's kind of like Monopoly, except Donald Trump's face is everywhere. Those are just some of the items you'll find on display at the Museum of Failure. Finally, hip-hop is paying tribute to one of its own.
Word up, no rap, no crap, you bore me. One to grab my body, too lazy, hold it for me. I'm straight rap great, bust the head straight and dreads, I'm everlasting. Like it's so on pro-cash.
Craig Mack passed away at 46 years old in New York due to natural causes. He leaves behind a wife and 2 adult children. Rest in power, Craig Mack. That's the flavor in your ear. We'll be right back.
I smash teeth, healthcare beef, no relief. I step on stage, girls scream like a...
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. But he's a part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. No time for tired. Nothing can disable this love. He needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community. Support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. So when I started the show, I wanted to make sure that we were showcasing unique stories from all over the world, people doing interesting things everywhere. And one of the most interesting people I found was right in my own backyard. Miss Yvette Ridley, as I told you before, 97 years old, just a powerhouse. She just shared her life with us. But before we started, it was fitting, since we were in the James Weldon Johnson building in Jacksonville, Florida, that we had a song to open it up by James Weldon Johnson. He was a son of Jacksonville, and he wrote Lift Every Voice and Sing, also known as the Negro National Anthem. And Dr. Kimberly Davis, who's the chair of the communications department at Edward Waters, sang the song.
Till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberties. Let our rejoicings rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound that the present has brought us, facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Now, from there, we jumped right into conversation with Ms. Ridley, who was not shy about her upbringing and where she came from. Remember, she was born just 2 days after women were allowed to vote. So it's almost like her being on the planet was in some way opening the doors for others. We join her talking about her experience going to Virginia Union University.
So I had to go to Virginia Union because they are the ones that had that program. Well, when I got to Virginia Union, I was in pre-med for 3 years because they hadn't expected a woman to come into medicine. And when I got in there, the rest of the black males just let me do all the work, do the experiments and so forth, while they sat there and talked about what women they knew and what they didn't know. So anyway, in my 3rd year of pre-med, my mother came up. And my mother was, what can I call her? A social aristocrat. That's what she wanted to be. And so anyway, my mother came up and she said in class, why in the world would you want to take all of this and bring other people's children in the world when you could marry a black doctor and have children of your own? So I said, well, okay. So I changed my major from pre-med to chemistry because I like chemistry as a subject better than any of the other subjects. Well, I finished in 1940 at Virginia Union with a major in chemistry. When I went back to Norfolk, the only thing on the application for black females was, what size uniform do you wear and can you bake bread? They had not been expecting a college woman to graduate and come back majoring in chemistry. Well, about a week after I had graduated, my chemistry teacher came to me and said the United States has decided to go into a war of its own, and they have decided to build their own arsenal. And I have put you down to go to Howard University to take chemistry of powder and explosives because I want our black people to know how to make those things too. So I said, okay. And I went to Howard and took chemistry of powder and explosives. Well, when I finished that class, and all this while I had been out of school and had not gotten even an application from anybody, to work for them or with them. Anyway, when I came out of that program, Edgewood Arsenal gave me my first interview for a job. But it wasn't really, because when I walked in there, they said, we manufacture stuff in here that will blow up this whole building. I said, mister, see, it was an arsenal. That's what an arsenal does. So I said to him, mister, you are wasting your time, because I just finished taking chemistry of powder and explosives to show how to build make all those things. He said, well, to tell you the truth, I don't really need to talk to you because you are a nice-looking colored woman, and the men that work here would look at you and blow up the building. So I said, what? And so I cannot hire you, he said, because you would be an employee that the other men would mess with. So I said, okay, well, I guess I've got to go back to school. So I went home, and at home, my husband was running a So a real estate place at that time. He did a whole lot of different things. And he let me work in the office because they had a chemical photography machine that they really didn't know how to work with. So he said, you can come in here and because of your chemistry, you can help us to see what's happening with this machine. I said, okay. I'm trying to figure out what I should tell you next. Anyway, I worked with that. And all of a sudden, they decided that they would have, I'm trying to think of the name of it. It was a course in electronic science and so forth and so on. And you had to have a sort of science major to get into that program. So I decided I would go in there and find out maybe I could get a job because I still hadn't been hired. I'd been out of school for 2 years and still hadn't been hired. So, see, where should I come to next? They decided at Hampton that they would have an engineering program and train people to do that. And of course, black people, because Hampton Institute was black. So I applied and I was accepted to go because, you know, I already had a degree in chemistry. So I went to Hampton and, well, I was in Virginia anyway, so I lived in Virginia for 80 years. So I went to Hampton to take this engineering program. But all the time I was in school, I might as well tell you this. God was good to me from the beginning, and he gave me this extraordinary brain. It could do photo engraving. I could read a book, and I could tell you the word for word, everything that was in that book. So, but I didn't let people know this because it would make them feel different, almost. And the only thing I did was go to school, and when I was in school, I never told the students I was with what I did or what I knew. I just went on and did it and explained to them anything they didn't quite understand. So anyway, I decided to go to Hampton. Hampton was right there in Virginia too, and take this new course they were offering in engineering. So I took that course, and when I got ready to graduate, I had explained things to people all the while I was in that course, because I remembered all I had all the way through college. Well, anyway, when we got through, they decided that they would try to fix up some things for black people to do. And so they came to this engineering program and took the top 5 people in that class down to Langley Field because they said they needed more computers. Now, computer is a machine now. It was not a machine then. It was people that did the math. They took the top 5 people out of that engineering course down for an interview to see what they knew and what they thought. Well, they took us to Langley Field and put us in this room, the 5 of us, by ourselves. And didn't anybody even come in and speak to us for about an hour. Oh, wow. So I started reviewing with them all the things we had, you know, in that engineering course. So finally, this one man walked in, and he said, "Who is Yvette Ridley?" I said, "I am." "Well, no, Yvette Brown, I'm sorry." So he said, what did you do? Why are you here? I said, well, I would like to get a job. I graduated from college 2 years ago and have not even had a real interview. So I would like to do something, sensible and smart and science. He said, what have you been doing? I said, well, I've been working with photo engraving with this machine. He said, explain the process of photo engraving. So that was easy for me. I had been through it, done it, worked in it. So, not getting paid, but, for my father, because he needed somebody to help him with that. So I told him, what I did. So he said, okay, well, I guess you do. I said, do what? What needs doing here? We are looking for people who've had some math background to be computers here at Langley. So they decided, after talking to him, and I told him that I had finished in engineering and all, they decided they were going to have some black computers. I said, all right. I was well, you can go in there and talk to the lady who does most of the hiring. So I went in there, and there was this PWT woman who was in charge of hiring and so forth. So she said, well, they have hired you, so you can come in here. And she was in the dining hall for Langley to eat. You can come in here and eat, but the rest of you colored people have to eat in the kitchen. So it was a funny world, but at least I was hired to be, an engineer. So she said, you can sit over there at that table and eat. And the table had colored computers, a big sign that said colored computers on the table, because the other colored people couldn't eat in that cafeteria. Wow. So I went over to the table that said colored computers and sat down, but I never went back to that table again because it was a federal program, and I know they were not supposed to be discriminating against people.
So what about going to the restroom? How was that? You're in a unique place, and of course, you're a person of color. How was that experience?
We have a colored restroom. That's what they call it. We finally, but when I got over into that new section, I could use anyone I wanted, but in the regular section, we had to use the color fashion. So anyway, she said, you are going to be in the west area of Langley Field. That's the new area, and it doesn't have all the people in it that belong in it, but we are sending you over there because we think you can join and belong. So I was hired as a West area computer. That was my title. Over in the West area, which was a new section of Langley Field, they didn't have any, well, they had white computers, but they had wind tunnels to check on people who wanted to have an airplane join
the
United States Air Force.
Yes, ma'am.
But this was NASA, NACA, National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. And the NASA now hadn't even begun.
Been invented, right.
So I went over there into West Area Computers. And when the other people in their group that had a tunnel and did the testing had too much work to do, right away, they would bring it over to us for us to do. So I said, well, why would we? One day this man from 16-foot tunnel came over there. I said, well, why do you all have to bring all this work to us? Why can't we go over there and work? Oh, no. But you can, I guess. We're going to send you to 16-foot tunnel. So they sent me to the other part. And I went into 16-foot tunnel, and they accepted me there. Oh, and incidentally, in 16-foot tunnel, there were 2 blacks, the janitor and me. The janitor of that tunnel and me. We were the only blacks in 16-foot tunnel. So anyway, they accepted me because I taught Sunday school, and I had done a lot of other things for the community. So they let me work in there in 16-foot tunnel until one day, one of the people walked in and said, I'm trying to think of exactly how she put it. We are hiring people and so forth and so on, but we don't want to hire anybody who hasn't had some experiences, and we haven't had but a few experiences. But we will see if we can hire you in this tunnel. And then they said, no, you have to go back to West Area Computers. So I went back to West Area Computers. It was interesting because we learned all these different ways of doing things because we worked for different tunnels all the time.
Were there any other black computers? And were you so you were the only black and only female? Were there other females?
There were 5 of us that they took from that engineering program.
Okay.
And sent over there to get interviewed. I just happened to be the first one they interviewed. And so there were still 5 of us. And we worked in that West Area Computer section.
And so were there black men? Were there any men computers back then? Like they had guys
over in the main area.
But only you were in that elite. I'm going to say elite group that went to the 16-foot tunnel. You might not say it's elite, but I think we would think that's elite that you went over and were the only one selected.
There were 5 of us in that section, and we had a white woman who was the head of our computer section, the West Area Computer. And she had never worked with blacks before, but because she was from Arizona or somewhere. But she was liking us because we could do things. You know?
Right.
So I worked along with her. I'm trying to figure out how I got out of there. Oh, I know. All of a sudden, they decided that they were going to have a real West Area computer section there in the West Area. But in order to get in it, you had to take an exam, and it was what did they call that? Anyway, all they did was work on things that were really new and really exciting. And you had to go and take a test to see if you could talk all of that extra math and so forth. So I got in there and I was sent over to them. I was the only black person in that section sent over there. But I worked with them until one day, and all of them were white, this white man walked up, and he had on just ordinary clothes, which was unusual because these people thought they were high, and the men that worked there wore suits, and shirts and things, and looked important. So I went over there to work with them. And one day this man comes up to see if he could be hired, and he just had on an ordinary T-shirt and some pants. And so they said they would try him out, and they tried him out, and he was an excellent person. But they didn't want to work with him because he didn't want to do anything that wasn't tried out. And he found out I had majored in chemistry. In chemistry, we do all kinds of different experiments, and we don't throw them away. We put them aside and label what was in that particular experiment. Well, anyway, they hired him, and I was there too. And he would come up, and when they would do something and it didn't work, he would stop and write it all up, because that's the way he was made.
To translate the experiment, so we had all the details.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
One day he came and said to me, I have been trying to work with all these other people who don't take any notes on what they did and so forth and so on. But I believe in taking notes, and I hear you were a chemistry major. So come and work with me. Do you mind? I said, not at all. I would love to work with you. So the two of us did all kinds of new, strange things that the rest of the people really weren't doing. They were doing people, planes and things that were sent to them that the people outside thought were very good. This man, Bill Feller, I'll never forget his name, said, why don't you come on in my office and work along with me? Because you and I can work on things that have never been worked on before. And that's what we did. And I'll brag a little. He and I were the ones that invented the X-15, because everything in that building was called an X, because it had not come out as a real, airplane. So we worked eventually on the X-15, which became the F-15. You know the F-15 airplane?
Yes.
Okay.
He and I worked on that. And
Wow. Awesome.
got that straightened out.
So let me, as you were experiencing, oh, you have questions? No, please.
No, please.
Oh, and so as you were experiencing these things, one of the things that which I think is great, that you weren't saying that you felt in any way oppressed. How did you maintain that integrity of what that you were good enough to do anything that anybody else? What was it that was in that internal fortitude? What conversation did you have with yourself? I'm curious about that.
No, I knew I was good. I knew it all the time. And I didn't tell most people what I knew or how I could do it. Bill Feller is the only one I related to that I could tell personally what I did. Because it wasn't in the point talking to those other people who were in there. It's just like when I was in college or when I was in high school, because of my photographic memory, I didn't make anything but A's. I've never made but one C in my whole life. Anyway, I went on working with him, and we worked on things that nobody else wanted to work with. And I said, that's how we came up with the X-15. But about that time, well, I didn't tell you about my husband and all that. I had gotten, he was from Hampton.
Right.
And I met him at when I came out of Virginia State, I went to live with an aunt of mine. And she had a haughty personality. And she had a grandson who had finished Harvard or someplace like that. And she wanted that grandson to meet me. So I met him. And he finally got a job working with this man from Hampton. Well, let me tell you about him, because he had a problem.
Okay.
At Hampton at that time, if you got good grades in high school, they would let you in and you didn't have to pay tuition. They would put you to work, and you had to work for no pay and do whatever you could do.
But you would get your degree.
Huh?
Yeah, they would give you your degree at no cost because you're working it off.
At Hampton.
At Hampton, yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to figure out how I first met. Oh, I know. He was very smart, too. And he heard about television being invented.
Wow.
Yeah. And nobody else knew anything about it. So he took a week off from teaching at Hampton and went in to learn about television and came back and started telling his students about them. because they were new and nobody knew anything about them, particularly. Well, would you believe Hampton called him into the office and said, "We hired you to teach electricity, not this newfangled junk." Yes, and they fired him.
Wow.
The world has been crazy for smart people. So they hired him. But in the meantime, I had gotten to work at Langley Field. And they were talking about finding other people who knew something about electronics. So I told them about him, and they hired him in the electronics department. Well, he was very good in that too, and he was so good because when he got there to Langley Field, and they were doing all this testing, on planes and so forth, they put him in this department with this man who was in charge of looking at televisions and so forth.
Okay.
And that man had only learned how to change tubes in the television. It was new. Oh, it was
Wow.
new. But he had gone to school, so they put him in there with this man who was supposed to be knowing things. Well, when he went in there, the other man who only knew how to change bulbs, went in, and the man had put all of these television sets in one room. My husband went in there, and in about a month, he had fixed up all of those television sets. And they were so surprised at that they decided to send him to, let's see, did you go to, I'm sorry, I just can't remember the name of the school.
Wow.
A school like Harvard, but it was very important. And he went there, and he did so well there that when he came out of that school back to Hampton,
Yes, ma'am.
they had this big program for him because he had done so well over there. And they said, please help our people here to do well also. Well, he did a whole lot of things. But one day they had a program for him, honoring him because of the good grades he had made in this college. Well, while he was in that program they had for him, honoring him for doing that, his teacher from Hampton, who had been advising him and working with him when he was in Hampton, came, and he was so proud of him. He said, you really ought to come and help us. And this teacher had changed from Hampton and gone to Virginia State. He said, we need black people at Virginia State that know something about all of this. And I would like for you to just retire from the Navy and so forth and come over.
So your mother, and I know you talked a lot about your career, but clearly your mom lived to be 104 years old.
Yeah, in my house.
In your house to be 104 years old. And what are your memories of the lessons? If you could give us one or two lessons that she taught you, and I have one final question after that, and then we'll get to some audience questions. What lesson do you remember? Your mother was with you a long, long, long time. What did she tell you that, besides go and get your doctor and have
My mother was a teacher originally, but that was the day when women married, they couldn't work anymore. They had to stop working and just work with the husbands and so forth. And so I was the oldest child she had. And so she taught me how to read and write and all that when I was 2 and 3 years old.
Douglas Wilder. Virginia the United States had not had an elected black governor since PBS Pinchback, 1800s. So you're a Virginia native, you born, raised in Virginia. What did it feel like to you when Douglas Wilder was the first African American to be elected to be the governor of Virginia. That was seminal for all of us, but you're a Virginian. What did that mean to you?
It was really good. The only thing is that I need to tell you is that back in Virginia, when I was doing smart things, all the intelligent people met together, and I was one of the intelligent people. And we talked about what should be done here in Virginia and all of that kind of stuff. And it was almost like an entirely different world because they were the intelligent people who were doing the ahead of time thing. So anyway.
Wow. Let's get some questions. Does audience members, any questions?
I've talked enough, I think.
Oh, but we got you giving us some good.
I told you how I got into NASA. Yes, I did.
Look here. We could listen to you because this is our history.
Yes.
And the oral history of our people. This is exciting.
Well, I do want to make a comment, and I am just so impressed because I was raised in Norfolk, Virginia.
In Norfolk?
Yes.
And that was my home.
Yes, and I attended Norfolk State College at the time.
Wow, that's awesome, which is, I'm sure, something that makes you proud about being a Virginian. So, Ms. Ridley, tell me something about your daddy.
My father was a very bright man. And so was my mother. Well, the black women in the Norfolk area were disgusted because we did not have a black Negro college or even a junior college in Norfolk. And so they wrote to the 3 black colleges, Hampton, Union, and Virginia State, to ask them would they put a branch of their school in Norfolk. The only one that answered was Virginia Union. And they said, if you can get 15 people to be patients in our schools, we will send people down to help teach them and to decide what projects or subjects they should take and so forth and so on. All the men who worked there who were black, this was the only black school where, only mental hospital where they had any kind of problem, had to go to this particular school.
You mean institution, like institution or sanitarium that they had back in that time. I get it. So at about 70, I understand, you retired. You got out of the everyday work grind. You've done a lot of stuff, though. You've done engineering and chemical reactions, worked in a mental hospital, all those things. But it was time to take a break. So what was next? What'd you do after that?
I had gotten into AARP.
Okay.
And they had me talking to their people about what older people can do. And I don't want to get into all this mess.
You have given us a whole lot to chew on. Yes. Yeah. And I mean, all of us in this room in some way, shape, or form are here because of your legacy. The fact that you all are telling us these stories, we're able, I know it's empowering for me because I know I used to absolutely, I don't know about you, but I detested math. I did not, oh my goodness. Some, as they say, as I went here to Edward Waters College, I was math class. I dreaded every day. I passed it, but it was very difficult for me. But it was inspiring when I heard your story and others like you who looked at math and just did it.
Well, it was a difficult subject, but I could pass it.
Yeah, with ease.
Yeah, with ease.
Yes.
Because of the way the Lord had fixed my brain from the beginning. It hadn't been me anyway. It's been God that's done all this stuff. So, anyway.
Well, how do you spend your days now, Miss Ridley?
Oh, my goodness.
Looking back through all the stuff
Okay, my mother moved in with me when she was 94. And
wow,
she had her own place and her own work and business and her own money. And she moved in with me. And at that time, I lived in a almost all white section. I moved out of Petersburg where we were living at Virginia State College. My husband was teaching there in the beginning. We moved over to this place which was almost all white.
She said spending your days now. You just kind of relax now, and besides
Hell
volunteer,
no.
besides volunteer, what do you do? Like, what's the day in your life like right now?
Okay, I go to Singleton Center. Singleton Center, and the first day at Singleton, I bumped into this white guy whom AARP had sent me all over the country with him to show that diversity works. And I said, I hadn't seen him in 2 years. I said, what are you doing here? He said, I'm doing a program on how to help colored people, get jobs and so forth and so on. So, anyway, we started working together. Yeah. And the people there, they have to be 50, I think, to get in there. Yeah, is that right? That's 50 or 60. And when one of them had a problem, they would come to me and say, so-and-so and so-and-so. I said, okay, now, what's the worst thing that happens to you in this problem that you have? And they would tell me. I said, and what is the best thing you do or think you could do about that? And that helped them to think and help to solve their problem. And I said, well, don't tell anybody what I'm doing. But the word got around that if you had a problem and you wanted to know something about something, go to that lady. But I would not let them, I tried to not let them use me. But anyway, life has been interesting, and life has been very interesting. And I go to Singleton now, and at first I did not tell them what I had done. They don't even know all this I'm telling you. They don't know I work for NASA. I don't like to talk about or brag anything that I have done, because I think God did it, not me. And so at Singleton Center, they come up and say something, I'm having a problem, so-and-so, and that's when I make them stop and,
Yes,
work
ma'am.
out that problem. So that's what I'm doing now, and I haven't even told. I sit at a special table with some interesting people, and I didn't even tell them I was coming here to talk about NASA, because most people don't feel comfortable with people who have done crazy things or weird things or unusual things. So I don't know what else to say to you, except I go to Singleton and I explain the things in the newspaper, because they don't read the newspaper, or they look at these killing
The shootings.
movies.
Yeah. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And at first I would not ever look at a movie, because when I was coming along, the movies messed up the books. That's enough.
No, that's good.
Well.
Well, no, just another comment. I remember seeing you now at Mary Singleton. I had no idea. I am truly honored to be in your presence today. And
Yeah, well, I didn't tell them all this that I told you all. They didn't know what I did.
We lucky. We feel lucky here. We're blessed. Yeah.
They didn't tell me. I didn't tell them what my job was or anything.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You have, again, been even though you might not seem like it, just you being around allows all of us to be here this day. So thank you both for your sacrifices. Happy Women's History Month, but we honor you every day. Let's give them a round of applause. Miss Yvette Ridley, as well as Mrs. Mary Hall Daniels. Thank you. The experience continues in just moments. We'll be right back.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Rahman Experience. What an amazing show to spend some time with Miss Ridley. And I know at the end of the last episode, if you're listening closely, I also spoke about someone, Mary Hall Daniels. Well, Mary Hall Daniels, we had her on the phone. She was not able to come. She was scheduled to come. It was supposed to be a dual interview with women in their 90s who had done some extraordinary things. Mary Hall Daniels was a woman who, at 3 years old, her family took her away because people of a different race murdered the entire town, or at least they tried to slaughter the entire town, but her family got her out. If you don't know the story I'm talking about, it's the story of Rosewood. And Mary Hall Daniels is the final survivor of Rosewood. She was supposed to be with us. She was a little under the weather and couldn't make it, but we were able to speak to her on the phone, and she stayed with us for a minute. So I am hoping to have her on a future episode because her story is so powerful, simply because, number one, it's real, but number two, Miss Hall Daniels had just no animosity in her heart. She remembered the story. She remembered all the pieces of it. And it was something that she really didn't share with her children until the Rosewood movie came out. So just to see the tenacity and wonder and beauty of all these women is amazing as we celebrate Women's History Month. Now, before I go any further, I'll be adding a new episode or a new segment to the Rahman Experience called Your Best Life. And I want to share some vintage Your Best Life moments with you from my time on the news. If those that do know me know that I spent time on news stations and hosting and doing stuff on TV. And I did a segment on the news each night called Your Best Life, where we talked about people or talked to people or about people who had done some extraordinary things to help others live their best lives and who were living their best lives in spite of unique and interesting circumstances. And I was telling a story in a small town in Georgia, and there was a rally there about a guy named Kendrick Johnson. And Kendrick Johnson was a kid who was he was supposedly found dead, rolled up inside a gym mat. And I broke the story because it was so weird to me how this kid who was rolled up in a gym mat supposedly killed himself or rolled himself up in a gym mat or fell into it when his arms were too wide to get into it. But that's what they say that happened. And Kendrick Johnson lost his life. So while I was there talking about the story, I met the pastor of Kendrick's church there in Georgia. And the Reverend Al Sharpton came down. There were other members of other groups that came to protest the way the city was handling the investigation. And I spent a few moments with a guy named Floyd Rose. He was the pastor of the church. And I just want you to take a listen to what he said. This is a vintage clip of Your Best Life, and we'll talk about it on the other side. Tonight on Your Best Life, there is so much that can be learned from the wisdom of the elders. You know, I had a chance to sit down the other day with Pastor Floyd Rose of the Serenity Christian Church in Valdosta, Georgia. And Pastor Rose told me a story about how he became the man that he is today. He said he went to meet a member of his church who had been arrested, and he got a gut check when he least expected it.
I have a Fleetwood Cadillac, don't you? I said, well, it's just a car. He looked at me and he said, you don't understand. When your mother's on welfare and you are you're 16 years old and the oldest of 4 children, you do what you have to do to survive. And he got up, walked toward the door and told the officer to take him back to his cell and didn't give me an opportunity to respond. And he looked back and he said, people like you can never understand. And I was so shaken by that I sold that big house and moved into the heart of the ghetto, got rid of that Cadillac, took all those fancy clothes to the Goodwill, and now I drive a car that's 20 years old. And I discovered something that Gandhi said a long time ago, and that is this. If you are going to save the people, you have to serve the people. If you're going to lead them, you have to love them. And you can't love them or lead them if you don't live among them.
Now, what Pastor Rose said rings true. Of course, we don't all have to move to a certain place or sell all of our belongings, but getting out of our own way and making space to help those who need a hand, that is another key to living your best life. Now, that was recorded back in 2013, 5 years ago, and, you know, the wisdom that Pastor Rose shared with me still reigns supreme. And I think about that. What can we do to live our best lives? How can we be the best that we're supposed to be? The only way we can do that is to try. We can't sit back and allow someone else to define who we are, define what we're doing, define where we're going, we've got to say, you know what, I'm going to do this because I want to, and no one else can tell me that I can or that I can't. It's almost like I was talking to a friend the other day, and I'm like, and it's something I say regularly to myself even, how can I accept no from someone who does not have the authority to tell me yes? I mean, there's so many ways to get to yes in our lives, and we don't do it because someone has put fear in us. And I can hear people saying over and over again that fear is the thing that hinders you from success, and your true success is just on the other side of your fear. And I totally believe that. And I'm believing it for you right now. And that's why I like doing this show, because I say it over and over, but it's so much fun. Like, to share the news, something I love, to learn new production techniques and tips, but most importantly, to share stories with you that can help you to be inspired and to change the circumstances that you have around you. And I don't think you can take that for granted when you're given that opportunity. So anyway, thank you for spending, again, your time with me on The Experience. Don't forget to share the show with everybody else on Spreaker. Remember, when you go on Spreaker to check out the Rahman Experience, like my channel. Don't just go on there and listen to the show and hit the heart, but actually like the channel. And the way you do it is when you go on, you click on my name, the Rahman Experience. There'll be a yellow tab that says follow. Follow your boy. Like, seriously, I need you to follow me and pass the word to other people, because I believe this experience is something that can help you to change your circumstances, learn some new things, meet some new folk. I don't know. And you know, I stay engaged on social media, so I hope that you will also continue to engage with me there. As we transition down today, you know, it's funny. I'm looking at the news and all the stuff that's going on, and it's literally every 10 minutes. Like every 5-10 minutes, something changes in Washington. And I'm like, okay, do I put this in? Do I not say this? Do I not say that? So I'm hoping that you will be just as engaged. I'm not saying news needs to consume your life, but I hope that you're engaged enough so that you'll see what's happening around you and allow it to be a lesson for your kids, people you're teaching, your friends, your family. Like, everything that happens in our lives for us, those are all lessons. And if we don't learn from those lessons, it's just like anything else in the universe. We'll be forced to repeat it over and over and over again. So, again, thank you for spending time with me on The Experience. I look forward to seeing you next time. Find me on Twitter at RahmanJ, also Instagram at RahmanJ, on Facebook, Rahman J Fans. That's where you can pick me up. Yeah, Facebook.com/Rahman J Fans. All of those places are places we can connect, but know that I am eternally grateful for being connected with you. And if no one's told you today, absolutely unequivocally, I love you. Because, you know, I believe that love is the most powerful emotion on the planet. And if we can do everything through the lens of love, we can change the world. Go out. Enjoy the rest of your day, whatever you're doing, or night, and continue to be amazing. The Rahman Experience.
It's a brand new experience, a brand new time, a brand new way to do it. Hey, yeah, it's all mine. I'm the one telling stories you thought couldn't be told. I'm the one that bring you in when you shaking from the cold. I'm the one always out front, yeah, trying something new. I'm the one that's gonna deliver when they ask what it do. Politics, entertainment, and science, Waterloo. Keeping you on the level with the stuff you can use. DJ Kids on the beat, Ross got the track. It's the Rahman Experience. You know that's where it's at.